Welcome on board, chosen one. Look at you, carrying half the confessions of everybody you've ever stood next to, and still convinced you're nothing special. When they told you the thing they'd never told anyone. When somebody you'd met 11 minutes earlier said something that changed the whole shape of their face. When you got home and realized again that you know more about people than anybody knows about you. Look who talks to you differently. Look who can't hold your eyes for long. Look who leaves the room early when you're in it. You're not a good listener. You're something people can afford. Here's the part nobody says out loud. There's a reading being taken of you constantly within seconds by everyone. And it's accurate, and it's the reason your life has felt like this since before you were old enough to notice. Hit that like button and subscribe to pay this message back, and push it toward every chosen one who's been carrying other people's truths without ever being thanked for it. Let's continue. Now understand what's actually being read, because you're going to reach for the wrong explanation. You'll say you're approachable. You'll say you have a kind face. You'll say people just talk to you the way somebody says they've always been unlucky with weather. That's not it. Approachable people get small talk. You get the thing underneath. Here's the mechanism, and it's colder and more interesting than kindness. Every time a person tells another person something real, they're calculating a price, not consciously, in about a second and a half. And the price has 3 parts. What will this cost me in how they see me? What will this cost me if it travels? And what will they want from me afterwards for having heard it? Almost everybody, everywhere, all the time, comes back with a number that's too high. So they say something smaller instead. That's what most conversation is. It's people paying the lowest available price all day long. Then they stand next to you and the number comes back at 0. Not low, 0. And a person who's been carrying something for years, who has never once found a place where it costs nothing, will put it down the moment they find one. They don't decide to. Their body does it before their mind catches up, which is why they so often look surprised at themselves halfway through a sentence. That's what happens to you in queues, at counters, in waiting rooms, in the back of cars. And you've never understood why it exhausts you. So you've assumed the exhaustion means something's wrong with you. Nothing's wrong with you. You've been running the only free service in the building. The universe assigns this to a very small number of people, and it doesn't ask them first, and it doesn't tell them what it's for. And hey, chosen one. Yes, you. Mark this one. Drop 777 in the comments, not for luck, not as a charm, as your signal that you're finished treating the thing everyone brings to you as a flaw in you. Hit like, subscribe. You're not following a channel. You're standing with the people who've been handed the truth all their lives and never once handed a receipt. And if this is truly yours, if it's landing where it's supposed to land, you'll feel the pull to stay until the very end. Because the last part is about the ones who can't stay in the room. Before we go a step further, understand how this stays standing. There's a link in the description. It's sitting in the pinned comment at the top as well, so nobody has to go hunting for it. That link is the only reason these messages keep getting made. It's held open by chosen ones who decided this work was worth protecting. If something already moved in your chest, that's your answer. Support it if you're able. Share the channel if you're not. Both carry the same weight here, and nobody's keeping score. Hit like so this stops getting buried. Subscribe so you never have to find your way back. And send this channel to one person who's spent their whole life holding what other people put down. Now let's go step by step. Number 1. People tell you things within minutes that they've never told anybody. Not similar things. The thing. The one at the center. Chosen one, let's tear the curtain open on how strange your ordinary life actually is. You've never compared notes properly. That's why you think this is normal. You assume everybody's day contains a stranger saying something enormous because yours always has. It doesn't. Most people go years without anybody handing them anything real. Imagine this: a person behind a counter doing a routine task who says something about their own life mid-sentence. Not a complaint, something with weight in it, and then looks slightly startled and finishes your transaction and says, "Have a good day," in a voice that's changed slightly. Imagine this: somebody in a waiting room telling you about a decision they've never told their family about. You've been sitting there 4 minutes. They don't know your name and never will. Imagine this: somebody at work you barely speak to, catching you alone by a window and saying the true version of something they've been saying the false version of for years, and then thanking you, oddly, for something you didn't do. Or picture the version that happens to you most. Somebody in a car, driving, not looking at you, talking. Something about the road and the not looking makes it easier, and by the end of the journey you're carrying a piece of a person you'll never see again. And maybe you're wondering, do I ask the right questions? You don't ask any questions. That's part of it. You're the only person in their week who isn't running an agenda through the conversation. Am I just being used as free therapy? No, and that phrase does you a disservice. Nobody's extracting anything from you. They're putting something down, which is a different action entirely, and it's the oldest one there is. Why do they choose me and not somebody warmer? Warmth isn't the signal. Plenty of warm people are expensive. You read as free, and free is rarer than warm by a very long way. Here's what to sit with. You've spent years thinking of this as something that happens near you, like weather. It's not near you. It's about you. You're the variable, and you've had the evidence your whole life and never once treated it as evidence. Think about a bench in a station where people happen to sit. Nobody chose it, nobody advertised it, and yet the same thing happens on that bench every single day. After a while, you'd have to stop calling it a coincidence and start calling it something about the bench. You've been that bench since childhood. And you should notice what you've done with that your whole life, which is nothing. You've never once treated it as information about you. You filed it under coincidence, or under other people being talkative, or under nothing at all. You're not somebody things happen near. You're the reason they happen. You're not a bystander in your own life. You've been the mechanism the entire time. You're not going to find a smaller explanation than that, because there isn't one. You're not somebody people find easy to talk to. You're somebody people find cheap to be honest with. Number 2, they're not confessing to you. They're confessing to the absence of a price. This is the distinction that changes everything, so let's be exact about it. You've always read those moments as being about connection, as a sign the person felt something for you. Mostly they don't. That's not cruelty, it's mechanics, and understanding it will take a great deal of weight off you. What they responded to wasn't you personally. It was the absence of a cost, detected instantly, the way anybody detects an open door without needing to test the handle. Imagine this: somebody telling you something enormous and then, 2 weeks later, being slightly awkward with you. You'll assume you did something. You didn't. They're just standing next to the only person who knows, and that's uncomfortable in a way that has nothing to do with you. Imagine this: the same person being perfectly warm again a month later, having quietly processed it and never referring to that conversation for the rest of your lives. Or picture the one that used to hurt you most. Somebody telling you the deepest thing about themselves and then not becoming your friend. You waited for the friendship to follow. It never did, and you decided you'd misread the moment. You hadn't misread it. It just wasn't the beginning of anything. It was a transaction that completed on the spot in full. Why doesn't it turn into closeness? Because closeness is built on mutual cost, And nothing about that exchange cost them anything. Free things don't create obligations, and obligations are what relationships are made of. Does that mean none of it was real? All of it was real. It was just complete. You've been treating completed things as unfinished ones and grieving accordingly. Should I stop letting people do it? You couldn't if you tried. The signal isn't something you're sending. It's something you are. Here's the reframe worth keeping. You've built a private theory that people take from you and leave. That theory has made you slightly wary in a way that isn't natural to you. Replace it. People put things down near you and then get on with their lives. That's not abandonment. It's what a resting place is for. And nobody sends a letter afterwards to a bench. Think about it till nobody's standing behind. Everything in that room still has value. It's just that nothing has to be paid for at the moment of taking. And every person who walks in senses that within a second and behaves accordingly without ever consciously registering why. You've been that room your whole life, and that should take a specific weight off you tonight. You've quietly kept score of the people who told you everything and then drifted. You've read that list as evidence that you're easy to leave. It's not that list. It's a record of completed transactions, and completed is not the same as abandoned. You're not somebody people use and discard. You're not being left. You're being finished with in the good sense by people whose weight you took. You're not owed a friendship for every truth you were handed. You weren't trusted because you earned it. You were priced instantly at nothing by everyone. Hold here for a second, chosen one. You're well past the point where most people scroll away. That says something about what you're actually looking for. If this is reaching you, keep the signal alive. The support link is in the description, and it's pinned at the top of the comments, so it's never more than one tap away. Every contribution that comes through it pays for another message like this one, for somebody who hasn't found their way here yet. Not everyone can give. Nobody here is asking you to. Sharing the channel costs nothing and travels further than money ever does. So take whichever one is yours. Like the video. Subscribe. Pass this channel to someone who reads a room accurately and has been told all their life that they overthink. Back to it. Number 3. The ones carrying something can't stay in the room with you for long. Now here's the other half of the mechanism, and it's the half you've never been shown. The same quality that makes honest people relax makes performing people uncomfortable. Not because you challenge them. You've never challenged anybody in your life. Because near you the performance stops working and they can feel it stop. Imagine this. Somebody telling a story at a table, a well-practiced one that's worked for years, and glancing at you halfway through, and something in the delivery changing slightly, because they can't get the usual reaction from your face, and it's put them off their rhythm. Imagine this. A person who's very good at rooms deciding unconsciously to sit further from you at the next gathering. They'd never be able to explain that decision. They'd deny having made it. Imagine this. Somebody who has to be around you regularly, keeping every conversation strictly on tasks. Efficient, polite, brief, never personal. You've read that as them disliking you. It's the opposite. It's a person managing exposure. Or picture the one you'll recognize from your own history. Somebody who was fine with you until the day you accidentally said something accurate about them. Not unkind, accurate. And things were never the same after that, and you never understood why. Why would being accurate cost me a relationship? Because most relationships run on an agreed version of a person. Accuracy is a breach of that agreement, even when it's flattering. Am I making people uncomfortable on purpose? You've never done anything on purpose in this whole story. That's what makes it impossible for them to object to. Is that why some people have always disliked me for no reason? That's exactly why, and it was never for no reason. It just wasn't a reason anybody could say out loud without confessing something about themselves. Here's the reframe to hold. You've spent years puzzling over a specific kind of person who cooled on you without explanation. You've assumed you offended them, or bored them, or failed some test you weren't shown. You didn't fail anything. They simply couldn't afford the exchange rate near you, and moving away was cheaper than being read. Think about a room where somebody switches on a plain overhead light in the middle of an evening. Nobody's exposed exactly, nothing shameful happens, but everybody who'd arranged themselves for the softer light adjusts, and one or two decide it's time to go, and nobody says a word about why. You've been switching on that light since you were a child, without a hand ever going near a switch, and that reframes about a third of the people you've ever met. Imagine this. You going back through every relationship that cooled without explanation and asking one new question about each of them. Not what did I do? What were they carrying? You'll be surprised how many of them resolve instantly. You're not the common factor in a bad way. You're the common factor in a way nobody could have explained to you. You're not too much for those people. You're the wrong conditions for something they needed to keep running. You're not going to get an apology from any of them, and you no longer need one to close it. You're not intimidating. You're just badly lit for performances. Number 4, you've been reading people accurately since before you had words for it. Let's name the other side of this, because you've been discounting it your whole life. You know, that's the plain version. You know things about people quickly, and you've been talked out of that knowledge over and over. You'd meet somebody and something in you would go quiet. Weeks or years later, everybody else would arrive at the conclusion you'd reached in a minute, and nobody would remember you'd got there first. Imagine this, you saying something mild about a person early on and being told you're being unfair, and then watching, sometimes for years, as your mild sentence turns out to have been the whole story in miniature. Imagine this, a room where everybody's charmed by somebody and you're the only one feeling something flat and cold in your chest, and you deciding that must be jealousy or coldness in you because everybody else seems fine. Imagine this, you knowing that a person is about to lie half a second before they do. Not from evidence, from something in the preparation, a tiny gear change that most people don't register at all. Or picture the one that cost you most. You overriding your own reading because you'd been told too many times that you overthink. And walking into something you'd already correctly identified with your eyes open because you'd stopped trusting the instrument. Why does nobody believe me when I say it early? Because early reads have no evidence attached. You're describing a conclusion without the working, and people can't distinguish that from prejudice. Am I imagining the accuracy? Test it against your own history, not the times you were anxious, the times you were quietly certain. That's a different feeling, and you know the difference in your body. Why do I doubt it every single time? Because being right early has been punished your whole life. Nobody rewards a person for the disaster that didn't happen. Here's the piece to keep. Your reading and your reception are the same faculty. You can't have one without the other. Being the place where people put down the truth is exactly the same instrument that tells you when somebody's carrying a false one. You've been trying to keep the useful half and get rid of the tiring half. They're one thing. Think about a tuning fork in a room full of instruments. It doesn't judge anything, it doesn't do anything. It simply rings when something near it is at the right pitch and stays silent when it isn't. And it can't be argued with because it isn't offering an opinion. You've been ringing accurately for decades and calling it a mood. And you should stop asking permission to use it. You've been running everything you sense past a committee, past the people who told you that you overthink, past the memory of being called unfair, past the version of you that got laughed at for a read that turned out to be right. That committee has never once been correct, and you keep consulting it. You're not required to justify what you sense before you're allowed to act on it. You're not being paranoid when you go quiet about somebody. You're not obliged to wait for evidence everybody else can see. You never have been. You're not suspicious of people. You're calibrated, and you've been apologizing for the calibration. Number 5, what you call being drained is the cost of being the only free place. Now let's deal with the tiredness, because it's the thing you'd most like fixed. You come home from ordinary social situations and you're finished, not sad. Emptied in a specific way, and it takes longer to refill than it seems like it should. You've called that introversion. You've called it low energy. Somebody probably suggested you're too sensitive, and you took it on board the way you take everything on board. Here's what it actually is. You've been holding something. Imagine this. 3 separate people at one gathering, each telling you something real. None of them told each other. None of them will ever mention it again. And you go home carrying 3 things that only you know, and there's nowhere to put any of them. Imagine this. You waking at 4 with somebody else's situation running through your mind. Not your business, not your problem, but you're the only one holding it, so it lives with you. Imagine this. You realizing you know something about a person that their own family doesn't know, and having to be normal around that family permanently without ever letting it show. Or picture the accumulation, 20 years of that, hundreds of pieces, almost none of them ever discharged, because the people who gave them to you have gone on with their lives and don't think about it. Why doesn't anybody ask me what I'm carrying? Because you read as a place where things go, not as a place things come from. Nobody thinks to check a resting place for weight. Is it my fault for not asking for help? Not fault. But notice that you don't ask, and notice what you'd have to overcome to. You've had a lifetime of being the free one, and free things don't put in requests. Doesn't that mean I should stop being this? You can't. And the ones who try to stop usually get harder rather than lighter, and lose the reading along with the receiving. Here's the reframe. You've been treating the tiredness as evidence of a deficiency in your constitution. It's not. It's the correct cost of an unusual position, and the position is real even though nobody has ever acknowledged it. You don't have low energy. You have ordinary energy and an extra job. Think about a well in a village where everybody draws water and nobody asks how it's doing. That's not neglect. It genuinely doesn't occur to anybody. A well is a thing you take from, and the entire village organizes itself around that assumption without a single person ever thinking it through. You've been the well since childhood. And there's something practical in that, which is permission. You're allowed to leave early. You're allowed to not go. You're allowed to spend 2 days after a heavy week saying almost nothing to anybody, without it meaning something's wrong with you. Imagine this. You treating that recovery as maintenance rather than as evidence of a defect. Same behavior, entirely different weight on your shoulders. You're not antisocial for needing the quiet afterwards. You're not failing at being a person. You're recovering from a shift nobody scheduled. You're not required to explain the tiredness to anybody who's never done the job. You're not too sensitive. You're carrying an inventory nobody has ever counted. Number 6, they take the truth to you and the credit somewhere else. Here's the part that will sting slightly, so let's be honest about it and move through it. The person who tells you the real thing very often makes their decision with somebody else and gives that person the credit. You get the 4 in the morning version. Somebody else gets the announcement. Imagine this. Somebody sitting with you, working out loud through the hardest question in their life. You say almost nothing. 2 months later they've done the thing, and they tell everybody that a completely different person helped them see it. Imagine this, somebody thanking a third party in front of you for advice that is word for word what you said to them in a car park. Imagine this, a person who has told you everything for years introducing you to somebody as a colleague, or an acquaintance, or a friend of a friend, in a tone that puts a great deal of distance in it. Or picture the one you've never told anybody hurt you. Somebody's life-changing, visibly, in a direction you were present for the beginning of, and nobody ever connecting the two, including them. Why don't they credit me? Because crediting you means naming the conversation, and naming the conversation means admitting what they were like before it. The credit goes to whoever was there for the acceptable half. Doesn't that mean they don't value me? It means they can't afford to be public about the exchange. That's a different thing, and it's worth learning the difference, because one of them is about you and the other isn't. Am I supposed to be fine with that? No. You're allowed to find it tiring and unfair. You're just not required to build a self-image out of it. Here's what to keep. The absence of credit isn't the absence of effect. You've been measuring your worth by acknowledgement, which is the one currency this position never pays in. Look at the outcomes instead. There are people walking around living differently because of 10 minutes with you. Not one of them will ever say so. Every one of them is still true. Think about somebody who receives something valuable and never gets a receipt for it. There's no proof it changed hands, no record, no signature, nothing to point at. And the thing is entirely in their possession anyway, working permanently, whether either of you can evidence it or not. That's what you've been handing out. And you can put down the scorekeeping now because it's been costing you. You've kept a quiet tally. The ones you helped who never said so. The credit that went elsewhere. The moment you were present for and written out of. That tally is accurate, and it has never once made you feel better. You're not going to be repaid in acknowledgement. That currency doesn't circulate here. You're not diminished by going unmentioned. You're not the story nobody tells. You're the part that happened before the story starts. You weren't overlooked. You were the part of the story that doesn't have a public version. Number 7. Your face doesn't move when it's supposed to, and that's the whole mechanism. Now here's the physical detail underneath all of this, and it's smaller than you'd think. You don't react on schedule. Somebody tells you something shocking, and your face does very little. Not because you're cold, because the thing they said didn't shock you, and you've never learned to perform the reaction people expect. That single absence is the entire signal. Imagine this. Somebody telling you something they consider unforgivable about themselves, braced for the flinch, and getting a small nod and a question about something practical. Watch what happens in that person. Watch their shoulders. Imagine this. Somebody confessing a thing that would get a gasp from anybody else, and you saying, "Right," and asking what happened next. That sentence has done more work than an hour of sympathy could. Imagine this. A person testing you with a small version first. Everybody does this. They tell you a medium thing and watch your face. And your face passes the test without your knowledge, and 30 seconds later the real thing arrives. Or picture the version that's followed you since childhood. An adult telling you something no child should carry, because you didn't react like a child, and they mistook that for readiness. Why doesn't my face move? Because you've heard worse, or lived worse, or your nervous system arranged itself early around not reacting, and that arrangement is now doing a job nobody hired it for. Isn't that just being unemotional? No, and anybody who knows you well would laugh at that. You feel all of it. It just doesn't arrive on your face at the moment it's expected, and the delay is what people are reading. Can I stop doing it? You could learn to perform the flinch. And the moment you did, the flow would stop, and you'd be an ordinary person having ordinary conversations, and you'd miss it more than you'd guess. Here's what to take. You've thought of your stillness as a social handicap, something that makes you seem distant at parties, unimpressed, hard to read. It's the mechanism. The entire thing runs on it. Every truth you've ever been handed came through that one narrow gap between what people expected your face to do and what it actually did. Think about a clock that doesn't flatter anybody. It doesn't rush when you're late or slow down when you're enjoying yourself. It just keeps giving the same steady answer regardless of who's asking or what they were hoping for. People find that either restful or unbearable, and there's no third response. And you should stop trying to fix your own face. You've been told to smile more, to seem more interested, to react the way people expect at the moment they expect it. And every time you've tried, something in you has felt slightly dishonest about it. That instinct is correct. The stillness isn't a bug you've failed to patch. You're not going to become warmer by performing warmth. You're not cold because your face is late. It has always been late, and it has always been the reason people talk to you. You're not required to be easier to read for anybody's comfort. You're not hard to read. You're the only thing in the room that isn't performing back. Number 8, the ones who tried to perform for you never quite recovered from being seen. This is the part with the longest tail, and it's happening in people you've forgotten about. There's a specific kind of person in your history. Charming, well-defended, very good at rooms. They tried the usual approach on you and it landed strangely, and afterwards they were never comfortable near you again. You've assumed you failed to impress them. Reverse it. Imagine this. Somebody running their best material at you and watching it not take, not rejected, just not taken, which is worse, because rejection at least confirms the material was noticed. Imagine this. That same person catching a moment where you clearly saw something they've never shown anyone. Half a second. You didn't say anything and you'd forgotten it by the evening. They've thought about it since. Imagine this, them being extremely warm to you in public and never once seeking you out privately. That's not dislike. That's a person controlling the conditions of every encounter. Or picture the one that follows them longest. Somebody realizing, years later, that the one person they never managed to convince of anything was also the only person who never once asked them for anything. Do they hate me for it? A few do. Most feel something more uncomfortable and less nameable, which is closer to being exposed than to being disliked. Have I made enemies without knowing? You've made a small number of people permanently uneasy, and none of them will ever tell you why, and none of them can act on it either, because there's nothing to point at. Should I be worried about that? No. Nobody can build a case out of being uncomfortable near somebody who's never done anything to them. Here's the reframe worth carrying out of tonight. You've spent your life quietly cataloging the people who cooled on you, and reading that list as a record of your own failures. Read it again. That list is almost entirely made up of people who couldn't run their usual arrangement in front of you. It's not a record of your failures. It's a record of the one thing you've never been able to switch off. Think about somebody who rehearses in front of a plain wall for years, and then one day rehearses in front of a window with the blind up. Nothing on the other side of that window judged them. Nobody was even watching. But they've never rehearsed in that room again. That's what standing near you has been like for a certain kind of person. And that should change how you handle the next one. There'll be another. Charming, quick, very good in rooms, and something in you will go flat within an hour of meeting them. You'll be tempted to override it because they're likable and everybody else is delighted, and you don't want to be the difficult one again. Imagine this, you simply not overriding it. Not saying anything, not warning anyone, just quietly not investing. You're not obliged to be convinced by somebody else's enthusiasm. You're not being unfair by staying at arm's length from a person you've already read. You're not going to be thanked for that read either, and it'll be correct anyway. You didn't lose those people. They removed themselves from a light nobody was shining. Number 9, nobody will ever tell you that you were the one they trusted most. Here's the part you've been waiting for, so let's be straight about it. You want to be told, just once, that the thing you've been doing your whole life mattered, and that somebody noticed it was you. That sentence is almost never spoken, not because people are ungrateful, because saying it requires reopening the moment, and the moment was the hardest one of their life. Imagine this. Somebody you helped enormously years ago, seeing you across a room and lighting up and coming over and talking about the weather for 4 minutes and leaving. That's the thank you. That's what it looks like when it arrives. Imagine this. Somebody at a funeral or a wedding or some crowded thing, holding your hand slightly too long and not saying anything at all. You'll think about that grip for a long time. That was the whole speech. Imagine this. A person who once told you the worst thing about themselves, but being unable to look directly at you for the rest of their life while quietly defending you to anybody who says a word against you. Or picture the most common version by far. Nothing. No moment, no grip, no look. Just a person living a different life than they'd have lived, with no idea which conversation turned it, and no reason to ever think about you again. Am I supposed to accept that? You already have, every day, for decades, without ever being asked whether you agreed to the terms. Why doesn't anybody say it? Because acknowledging what you did means acknowledging where they were, and almost nobody is willing to stand in that room twice. Isn't there anybody who'd tell me the truth? 1 or 2 people would, and they're the ones who've stayed close, and they'd be baffled that you needed telling, because to them it's just an obvious feature of you. Here's the last practical thing. You've been waiting for external confirmation that this is real and that it counts. That confirmation is structurally unavailable, in the same way an unsigned decision is unavailable. Stop waiting at that particular window. Everything the acknowledgement would have described has already happened, in other people's lives, permanently, without a record. Think about a ledger that nobody keeps. Every entry is accurate, every transaction happened, and there's no book anywhere, and no auditor, and no total, and the whole thing runs perfectly well without a single line ever being written down. That's the account your life has been running. And there's a mercy inside that, once you stop fighting it. If they did acknowledge it, you'd be attached to every one of them. Every person you'd ever helped would be a live relationship with an ongoing obligation running in both directions. Imagine this. Every truth you've ever been handed coming with a person permanently attached to it. Picture that life. Picture how little of it would be yours. You're not free in spite of the silence. You're free because of it. You're not carrying those people. You held something for an hour, and they took it away with them. You're not the keeper of anybody's life. You were the place they stood while they worked it out. You're not unacknowledged because it didn't matter. You're unacknowledged because acknowledgement was never part of the arrangement. Number 10, you stopped trying to be liked, and people started telling you the truth. Here at the end, everything narrows to a single point, and it happened without you noticing. There was a stretch when you stopped working for approval. Not out of confidence. You got tired. The effort of being pleasant enough, agreeable enough, useful enough finally exceeded what you had, and it simply stopped happening. You've carried that as the period you got worse socially. Less warm, less fun, harder work for people. That's the stretch when the flow got heavier, and you've never once connected the two. Imagine this. You in a conversation, not steering it toward being liked, just present, and somebody telling you something enormous within 10 minutes. That combination has never once been a coincidence in your life. Imagine this. You letting a silence sit instead of filling it with something pleasant, and the other person filling it with the real thing, because silence near a person who isn't buying anything is the most inviting thing in the world. Imagine this, you giving a plain answer about your own life with no polish on it, and watching the other person's whole posture change because you just went first at no charge, and now the price for them is zero as well. Or picture the last one, which you'll be able to test this week. You not being funny in a moment where you'd normally be funny, just being ordinary, and noticing who steps closer. But why would being less likable draw more truth? Because trying to be liked is a request, and every request is a price. The moment you stopped asking for anything, the entire exchange became free, and free is the only condition this works in. Was I blocking it all those years? Partly, and don't be hard on yourself about it. You were doing what you were taught. It just happened to be the one behavior that interferes with the thing you're actually for. Is that the whole answer? That's the whole answer. It's smaller than you wanted, and it explains more than you expected, which is how these things usually go. Here's the final piece. You've been trying to work out what you're for. That question has followed you around since you were young, quietly underneath everything, and nobody's ever given you an answer that fit. You're the place things get put down. That's not a small assignment. Most people go their whole lives without ever once being somewhere the truth is free. Think about a room where somebody finally puts down a bag they've been carrying all day. Nothing happens. Nobody comments. The bag just sits on the floor, and the person straightens up, and something in their face comes back that had been gone since morning. You've been that room for people your entire life. And here's the last thing, and it's the one worth keeping. Imagine this, some ordinary week ahead of you where 3 separate people say something real to you, and you notice it happening while it happens, for the first time in your life, not afterwards. During, you'll feel something settle, not pride, recognition, the specific relief of a person who's finally been told what their own life has been doing. Imagine this, you going home from that week and not feeling emptied for once, because you know what the tiredness is now, and naming a weight makes it lighter to carry. You're not going to be told what you are by anybody else. You're not waiting on an explanation anymore. You just got one. You're not the person who never found their purpose. You've been doing it since childhood without a single day off. You didn't become somebody people confide in. You stopped charging and everybody could tell. And now, chosen one, everything comes full circle. Go back to where this started. A stranger, 11 minutes, and a thing they'd never told anyone. You went home and thought nothing of it, because it's happening since before you could name it. It was never about your face or your patience or your kindness. It was a price, read instantly by somebody who'd been carrying something with nowhere to put it. You've been the only free place in a great many people's weeks. And the same absence of a price is why certain people can't stay in a room with you, and why the ones running a version of themselves quietly moved away without ever explaining. Your reading and your receiving are one instrument, and you've been trying to keep half of it. And the exhaustion you've apologized for is just the weight of an inventory nobody's ever counted. The times you were right early and told you were unfair. The people who took the truth to you and the credit elsewhere. The nights nobody saw. They weren't proof that you're too much. They were the cost of being the one place the truth was free. While they were performing, you were being handed the actual thing. Go back once more to that first image. Somebody at a counter mid-task saying something with weight in it, and then looking startled at themselves. That startle is the whole story. That's a person discovering mid-sentence that it isn't going to cost them anything this time. Nobody will ever tell you what you've been. There's no acknowledgement coming, and there never was. You've spent a long time believing that if this mattered, somebody would have said so by now. Being told and being the place are two different things, and only one of them was ever assigned to you. Every year you spent thinking you were too sensitive was a year you were holding more of the truth about people than anybody else in the room. They'll keep bringing it to you. They will. That part doesn't stop. But being handed the real version of people over and over by strangers is not a burden anybody carries by accident. Your rise isn't coming. It started the year you got too tired to be charming. Walk into it knowing you were never the one who couldn't be read. You're the one nobody has ever had to pay to be honest with. If this message hit home, chosen one, like the video and subscribe. Drop 77 in the comments. And share this with someone who's carried other people's truths for years without a word of thanks.